Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, I thought I'd bring you news of the resolution of the dispute between our friend who was involved in an accident where a young, actually not just a young man, but a minor of about 13 years old crashed into the side of his truck when he was doing a U-turn. A dispute followed where we went actually to the hospital, and the whole point was that our friend could pay a certain amount of the money up front in cash, but he needed to be able to do payments on the rest. And thereby hangs the tale, because the lady that we went to see, who apparently had the judgment, the authority to make a judgment call, refused to do that and sat, well, just said no, that cannot happen, we can't do that. Now they have a law, well, they have a rule here in hospitals that they don't let the patient go unless they paid the bill. So we've got this young boy, and it's kind of developing into a difficult situation. Well, our friend started to get a little bothered by how intractable the hospital seemed to be doing, and his logic, west meets east, his logic was this: you can accept that I'm going to honour a promissory note, and you will get X amount of money now, and he showed them the money, or you can get nothing, and I'll fight it in court, because I'm really getting a bit annoyed about all of this. That's the West for you. It's confrontational, and it's quite different to how they do things in the Philippines. Well, what happened in the end was the office that we were in, right, upstairs, the office upstairs said, okay, well, we'll handle it if the downstairs, the doctors and some other fees that had to be paid, if they will work with it, we can handle the promissory note. So we went down there thinking, well, this is just a rubber stamp, because they'll know that upstairs has agreed it, and they will go along with what has already been agreed in the interests of resolving what seems like an insurmountable problem. Well, when we got downstairs, it didn't turn out that way, and the young woman that was there, it's not her fault, by the way, she was unable to actually go any further with it. So our friend says, I'm going outside for a moment, and when I come back, if it's not resolved, then I'm out the door. Well, these phrases of out the door and I'm off, they don't actually resonate with the Philippine people and their understanding of the English language. These are colloquialisms that we take for granted, and though we understand them, very often these are just glossed over as being something that they are not key, and they're not understood. So the point of what you've said is just not understood. So you can go in there all day long and say, hey, get it together, do what you have to do, because I'm not hanging out here all day, I'm off out the door, I'm down the road, I'm doing my thing. These are all colloquialisms. We don't realize just how colloquial we are. So came the moment, he returned, and still nothing had been decided, so we were indeed out the door. The parent was left there to try to resolve it. Now, the parent has a vested interest in, obviously, in getting this resolved, and as far as he's concerned, he's looking at a confrontational foreigner, which is an unpredictable thing for a Filipino. Now the man is a seaman actually, and obviously as such works abroad a great deal of the time and comes into contact with Westerners quite a lot. So he knows a little bit about how far this is going to go. Our friend retreated, we got back in the truck and we headed for home. By the time we had gotten halfway, there was a text for our friend saying, "Come back in, the promissory note is okay." Our friend decided that this may or may not be, in the same way that it may or may not have happened that we actually went to Tagbilaran yesterday and spent the entire day doing just that at the hospital, where apparently, even though he had been told, well, this has all been sorted out, why don't you come, and the boy's coming out to hospital, and we found that none of that was true. It was all in the wrong tense, past, present and future, and that often gets a little bit mixed up when you're talking to Filipinos. So the final thing is that the father of this boy is now coming to see our friend, and he will come to the home of our friend, and he will, I guess, in a way, this is one way of saying very tactfully that they're going to check up on our friend and make sure that he is where he says he is, so that in the event of nothing being paid on the promissory note, they'll know where he is. One of the things that they suggested, which sounded quite archaic actually after all these years of working on an ATM card and working on credit cards and cards, they said, well, the hospital will acknowledge this this idea of a promissory note if you will sign a post-dated check. Oh my God, I remember that. They were the same, weren't they, back when those telephones went tsk-ee, tsk-ee? They were kind of a long time ago. Does anybody use a check anymore? I thought that everything was on a card now. Well, our friend is now, after not responding to a couple of texts to drive the tension up a little bit, they started to call Beth on my phone and say that our friend had not responded to his texts. And so anyway, bottom line is that that's resolved now. The father is coming up to see and check on our friend. I'm guessing that he will have the authority to get a promissory note signed, and that will work. And of course our friend will honour the payments that he agrees to make to the hospital. He's a little bit short of cash, he's not a crook, okay? So that was the update, the resolution of the medical issues in sight. So we're still in the future tense, but it is a question of east meets west, west meets east. This has been a foreigner in the Philippines looking to see things resolved. Bye for now.